You notice it most in the morning. The room is quiet, the alarm has just gone off, and before you even pull back the covers, you are already mentally calculating the physical cost of getting out of bed. It starts with the feet hitting the floor. Then comes the stiff hesitation in the knees. You might feel a dull, heavy ache in the lower back, or notice that your fingers are inexplicably tight, making it hard to grip the bed frame or turn the bathroom doorknob. The first 10 minutes of the day often feel like walking through wet cement. You have to physically warm up your own body just to walk to the kitchen. Most people accept this as an unavoidable tax on getting older. We are told, quite frequently, that this is simply wear and tear. It is framed as a mechanical problem, like the brake pads wearing down on a car. You lose cartilage, bone rubs on bone, and it hurts. But this mechanical explanation is missing a massive piece of the biological puzzle. Joints are not dead rubber or inert plastic. They are living, highly active tissues surrounded by a complex network of nerves, blood vessels, and synovial fluid. When your joints hurt, ache, or swell, it is very rarely just physical friction. It is a biological fire. It is an active, low-grade inflammatory response that your immune system is failing to switch off. The body is reacting to cellular debris inside the joint capsule, and in its attempt to heal the area, it floods the space with inflammatory compounds. That swelling, that stiffness, is your body trapped in a perpetual state of overreaction. Before we look at how to actually cool down this biological fire, I am curious about your own experience. Drop a comment below with your age, where you are watching from, and which joint usually bothers you the most when you first wake up. It helps to see how common these specific patterns are across different environments. For decades, the standard approach to this daily stiffness has been straightforward. Take a pill that blocks the pain receptors. Over-the-counter anti-inflammatories work by shutting down a specific enzyme in the body responsible for pain signals. And they do work, temporarily, but they are a bit like pulling the battery out of a smoke detector. While the kitchen is still smoldering, the alarm stops ringing, but the fire is still burning. Over time, relying heavily on these medications can introduce new problems to the stomach lining, the kidneys, and the liver. What the body actually needs is not a muted alarm, but a signal reset. It needs compounds that communicate with the immune system to gracefully wind down the inflammatory cycle, clear out the cellular waste inside the joint, and restore the thickness of the synovial fluid, which is the natural shock absorber sitting between your bones. There is a specific combination of natural compounds that achieves this. You might have heard fragments of this before. Usually, people are told to eat a certain spice or take a specific extract. They try it for a week, notice nothing, and assume it does not work. But the biology of joint repair does not respond to isolated ingredients. It responds to synergy. There is a combination of botanical compounds that, when used together, drastically alter how the body processes inflammation. Some researchers have casually referred to it as a forbidden combination, not because it is illegal, but because the food and supplement industries often actively avoid putting them together in their raw, effective forms due to the high cost of sourcing and the complex taste profile. Instead, they sell you isolated fragments that your liver immediately filters out. To understand how to actually reach the joints, we have to start with the Baseline Fire Extinguisher. This is the root compound, but as you will see, it is entirely useless on its own. The foundation is turmeric. Specifically, the active compound inside it called curcumin. You have likely heard of it. It has been studied endlessly. When scientists look at curcumin in a petri dish, it is astonishing. It suppresses multiple inflammatory pathways simultaneously. It downregulates the enzymes that cause joint swelling, and it neutralizes free radicals that degrade cartilage. But there is a glaring problem that is rarely explained. Human biology is designed to treat curcumin as a foreign invader. When you consume standard turmeric, it travels down into your gut and is absorbed into the portal vein, which leads directly to the liver. Your liver's entire job is to filter the blood. It looks at the curcumin, identifies it as an unfamiliar botanical compound, and immediately initiates a process called glucuronidation. It attaches a sugar molecule to the curcumin, making it water-soluble, and flushes it straight out of your body through your kidneys. This is why someone can eat spoonfuls of expensive organic turmeric powder every day. and still wake up with stiff, throbbing hands. The liver is too efficient. The compound never reaches the knee. It never reaches the hip. It never makes it into the systemic bloodstream. This is where the first layer of the combination comes in. It requires a biological lockpick. Black pepper contains an alkaloid called piperine. On its own, piperine is mildly interesting for digestion. But when it encounters the liver, it does something highly unusual. It temporarily inhibits the exact enzyme the liver uses to destroy curcumin. It essentially distracts the liver's phase 2 detoxification system for a few hours. When you consume curcumin alongside a highly concentrated dose of piperine, the liver's natural defense is paused just long enough for the curcumin to slip through the filter and enter the bloodstream. A well-documented study from the late 90s demonstrated that piperine increases the bioavailability of curcumin by 2,000%. It is the difference between a drop of water and a rushing river reaching your joint tissue. But getting the compound into the blood is only the first step. The blood still has to deliver it to the joint. And joints, by their very nature, have notoriously poor blood supply. Think about your knee or your shoulder. The cartilage itself has almost no blood vessels. It relies entirely on the slow, passive diffusion of nutrients from the surrounding synovial fluid. If you have chronic inflammation, that fluid is likely thick, stagnant, and filled with cellular debris. Even if the curcumin is in your bloodstream, it struggles to penetrate this stagnant zone. This is where the third element of the combination is required. It acts as a circulatory driver. Ginger contains active compounds called gingerols and shogaols. While ginger is traditionally associated with settling an upset stomach, its role in joint health is entirely different. It acts as a powerful vasodilator for the micro-capillaries. Think of it as improving traffic flow inside the very tiny blood vessels that surround the joint capsule. By gently expanding these vessels and stimulating localized blood flow, ginger forces fresh plasma into the joint space. It acts as the delivery vehicle, pushing the curcumin deep into the synovial fluid, where it can actually begin to interface with the degraded cartilage. I spoke with a woman a few years ago, Helen, who was 68 at the time. She had a garden she loved, but she had stopped going out to tend it because her knees felt like they were filled with crushed glass every time she crouched. She had been taking a high-end isolated turmeric supplement for a year with zero change. It wasn't until she began combining the piperine to bypass the liver and steeping raw ginger to force the microcirculation that the compound actually reached the site of the pain. She told me it wasn't a sudden miracle, but over about 6 weeks, she realized she was crouching to pull weeds and the sharp restrictive pressure was just remarkably duller. When you combine curcumin, piperine, and ginger, you have created a delivery system. You bypass the liver and you force blood flow to the joint. If you are finding this breakdown of how the body actually processes these compounds helpful, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It tells the algorithm that this kind of grounded, practical science is valuable, and it helps us keep making these deep dives for you. Now, even with this delivery system in place, there is a stubborn form of joint pain that this trio still struggles to fully resolve. Curcumin and ginger are fantastic at shutting down the COX-2 inflammatory pathway. This is the same pathway targeted by ibuprofen, but the human body has a secondary, completely different inflammatory pathway called the 5-LOX pathway. If you have joint pain that feels deep, hot, and stubbornly refuses to ease up no matter how much you stretch or rest, it is highly likely your 5-LOX pathway is overactive. This pathway produces inflammatory molecules called leukotrienes, which are particularly aggressive at breaking down cartilage. Curcumin barely touches this pathway. To shut down this secondary fire, you need a compound that specifically binds to the 5-LOX enzyme. This is the fourth layer of the combination, and it is perhaps the most critical for older adults dealing with advanced joint stiffness. It is a resin extracted from the Boswellia serrata tree, commonly known as Indian frankincense. For thousands of years, this resin was scraped from tree bark and used in traditional medicine, but modern science has only recently isolated exactly how it works. Boswellic acids are unique because they are one of the very few natural compounds proven to directly inhibit the 5-LOX enzyme. When you introduce Boswellia into the mix, you are effectively closing the back door to inflammation. The curcumin handles the primary swelling, the ginger drives the circulation, the piperine ensures absorption, and the Boswellia stops the aggressive cartilage-destroying enzymes that everything else misses. In a 2019 study published in the journal Phytotherapy Research, researchers observed patients with osteoarthritis of the knee. When given a combination of curcumin and Boswellia, the patients showed significantly superior results in pain reduction and physical mobility compared to those taking curcumin alone. It is the synergy that creates the result. A man named David, who was 74, told his doctor he was struggling to walk down the stairs in his own home. Walking up was fine, but the downward pressure made his knees tremble with a sharp, localized pain. He integrated a Boswellia and curcumin blend, ensuring it had a fat source for absorption. He said the most noticeable change wasn't that he suddenly felt like a teenager, but that one morning he walked downstairs to make tea, and realized halfway down that he hadn't braced himself against the handrail. The deep, hot ache that usually preempted his movement was just quiet. But there is one final piece to this combination. It is the most surprising, the most frequently overlooked, and the one that truly earns the label of a forbidden or forgotten combination. When we talk about joint pain, we are heavily focused on the physical swelling, but pain is ultimately a neurological signal. The nerve endings surrounding your joints become hyper-sensitized. They become frayed and irritable. Even if you reduce the swelling with turmeric and Boswellia, those nerve endings can continue to misfire, sending phantom pain signals to the brain simply because they are used to doing it. You need a compound that naturally gently calms the localized nerve receptors. This is where clove comes in. Clove is almost exclusively thought of as a baking spice or an old-fashioned remedy for toothaches, but its active compound, eugenol, is a profoundly powerful natural anesthetic and neuromodulator. When eugenol enters the bloodstream and reaches the joint capsule, it interacts with the pain receptors themselves. It does not numb the area completely, but it acts like a volume dial, turning down the hyperexcitability of the nerves. It takes the sharp, biting edge off the pain. Furthermore, clove is an absolute antioxidant powerhouse. It has one of the highest ORAC values, a measure of antioxidant capacity of any food on Earth. As the curcumin and Boswellia are breaking down the inflammatory fire, they leave behind a metabolic ash. The antioxidants in clove act as a cellular broom, sweeping up the oxidative stress that damages the synovial fluid. When you combine these 5 elements, turmeric for the baseline anti-inflammatory, black pepper to bypass the liver, ginger to force microcirculation, Boswellia to shut down the cartilage-destroying enzymes, and clove to modulate the nerve endings and sweep up the oxidative debris, you are no longer just putting a band-aid on a symptom. You are addressing the biological root of joint decay from 5 different overlapping angles. The research is still evolving, and of course, results vary depending on your baseline health, your sleep quality, and your overall diet. If you are consuming highly processed, sugar-laden foods that constantly trigger systemic inflammation, these compounds will be fighting a losing battle. But when paired with a reasonable lifestyle, the changes in physical mobility can be profound. The most practical way to use this is not necessarily to swallow handfuls of expensive pills, though high-quality extracted supplements that combine these specific ingredients do exist and are convenient. Historically, this combination was consumed as a warmed, fat-based liquid, often referred to as golden milk or golden paste. The fat is crucial. Curcumin, Boswellia, and eugenol are all fat-soluble. If you take them with a glass of cold water, they will struggle to absorb, even with the black pepper. A realistic daily routine involves creating a small paste using organic turmeric powder, ground black pepper, finely grated fresh ginger, a pinch of ground clove, and a high-quality Boswellia extract powder. You warm this gently in a pan with a healthy fat like coconut oil, ghee, or extra virgin olive oil. The heat activates the compounds, and the fat provides the carrier molecule they need to pass through the intestinal wall. You can store this paste in the fridge and take a small spoonful daily, either directly or stirred into a warm cup of almond milk, oat milk, or even a savory broth. The timing matters too. because joint stiffness pools overnight while you are completely still. Consuming this combination about an hour before bed allows the compounds to circulate and pool in the synovial fluid while you sleep. It helps to intercept the inflammatory cascade before you even wake up. This is usually a gradual process, not an overnight fix. You might not notice much in the first week. The body takes time to clear out old cellular debris. But usually, around week 3 or 4, people start to notice the subtle things. The heavy legs feel a fraction lighter. The grip strength in the morning returns a few minutes faster. The hesitation before standing up from a low chair begins to fade. Aging absolutely changes the body. The mechanics shift, the recovery slows down, and the wear is real. But the body does not completely shut down its repair mechanisms just because you cross a certain age threshold. The biology still responds to support, provided you speak to it in a language it understands. Small, consistent biological improvements compound heavily over time. You are simply giving your immune system the exact tools it needs to stop fighting itself. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Which part of this biological process surprised you the most? Is it the liver filtering out the turmeric, or the hidden role of clove? Let me know in the comments, and if you have a friend or a family member who constantly talks about their morning stiffness, consider sharing this with them. It might just give them the missing piece of the puzzle they have been looking for. Thank you for watching, and take care of yourselves.